A new tropical storm is forming out in the Atlantic as Erin continues to ravage the coast with storm surge and gusty winds. Meanwhile, a massive explosion on the far side of the sun blasted off from a sunspot group that will be facing the Earth in about 7 days. Plus, fall is coming in more ways than one. We're going to dive into all of that, plus test your weather IQ and see how it measures up, and we're going to begin here in the tropics. Hello, weather friends, and welcome into the channel. Jason is my name, and I'm so glad that you are here with me for another episode of Cold Rain's Weather World. We've got all the weather, and we've got a lot of it to get into today, starting with Erin. Look at this satellite image. This does not look like a healthy hurricane, does it? Yesterday, we had this nice inner core established all the way around with even a little eye popping out. Well, today it's sort of a ragged mess blown off to the north and east, and you can see that's the lopsided nature of the hurricane once it starts to feel shear and get caught up in the westerlies, and it is in the process of doing that. And in about 48 hours, it's going to really begin that transition to extratropical, maybe even a little bit sooner than that. But you can see North Carolina kind of sticking its nose out right here. There's Cape Hatteras feeling a few rain bands this morning, and certainly some some gusty winds, and gusty winds up here into the mid-Atlantic, the Delmarva, and places like that. But this system is pulling off. It's encountering some shear, the conditions, it's getting into some cooler waters too. The conditions aren't all that favorable anymore for strengthening, so we're going to see it weaken slowly from here and then pick up the pace of weakening as we go on out. There is Erin in relation to the western Atlantic, and look at the size of this storm. This looks like a Pacific hurricane, folks. It is still a Category 2 storm. As a matter of fact, the 8 a.m. advisory has it at 105 miles per hour with a movement to the north-northeast at 17 miles per hour, so it is picking up steam. Pressure continues to drop, and folks, it is going to be out of here at an accelerating pace through the weekend. By 2 a.m. Saturday, off of the coast of basically Cape Cod, but way out in the Atlantic, it's going to continue to zoom off to the north and to the east, and by Tuesday, it's going to be off the coast of way out here off the coast of Ireland and the UK, and it's going to do a little loop-de-loop and spin around out here, and where it goes from there, we'll have to see. But that is your track over the next several days, folks. We're going to get into a better display here. There's the tropical storm for sustained wind speeds. You can't really see it all that well, but pretty high probabilities this morning up here at Cape Hatteras. And then as you go on up the coast, the probabilities remain slightly off. clips Cape Cod here, clips Nova Scotia, clips the Avalon Peninsula, and then you head on out. So we're talking about 39, 40 mile per hour, maybe 45 tropical, that's tropical storm force, sustained for a minute. You may have several minutes of that, but you're going to have gusts probably into the 50s all up and down the coast here, 40s and 50s very likely, but sustained winds are going to remain offshore. Certainly the hurricane force winds and all of the big heavy weather associated with the storm in the center of circulation, we're going to remain well offshore, along with most of the rain. Bermuda, you're going to see some rain as those feeder bands kind of come through, some showery, squally weather with gusty winds, but the big heavy rain is going to remain offshore. All of this rain is not associated with the hurricane. That's general convective and shower synoptic scale rain and mesoscale rain back into the southeast. There's your storm surge, Cape Fear all the way up to Sandy Hook, with the biggest surge here from Duck to Cape Lookout, particularly pointed around Cape Hatteras, 2 to 4 feet here. The blue is 1 to 3 feet. Let's get these northerly winds piling that water back up into Norfolk, places like that from the Chesapeake. Here are the wind gusts as we go on out through the next couple of days. This morning, we're looking at the primary wind gust field touching and clipping Cape Hatteras as the eye of the storm moves on off. This is a better representation of the storm than what it actually is. So these wind gusts may be a little bit overdone, but certainly 40 to 50 mile per hour, maybe a occasional 60 mile per hour gust out here on the Cape as we get in through the day to day, and you can see those winds sort of spread up the coast, but they don't make it all that far inland. Inland, you can see gusts into the 15 to 25, maybe even 30 mile per hour range as you get onto the coast, but 30s and 40s along the coast, not out of the question at all. You get on up into Cape Cod and up here the Jersey Shore toward Cape Cod and Maine, you're not looking at too much here in those areas, but Cape Cod, certainly as we go through the night tonight and into the morning hours tomorrow, we'll see some gusty winds before things begin to diminish tomorrow afternoon. Here is the GFS model, and the European largely agrees with this in terms of the track. So we're here this morning, we get on through the day tomorrow, Friday afternoon, it's on up here toward off the coast of Maine, and then turning out to sea as we get to Saturday and Sunday, and then it heads on up just east of Greenland, between Greenland and Europe. And so that's where it's going. Now out in the Atlantic, though, we've got several other areas to watch out here. We've got a new red area that is a 70% chance of developing. This is going to develop most likely into Fernand, is the next named system. And look at the shape of this cone, though. So what's going to happen is this little wave, and we'll look at this wave in a second, it's going to continue to migrate in here toward the northern islands, British Virgin Islands and so forth, bring some squally weather in there. It's going to develop probably into a tropical depression and then to a tropical storm, but it's going to then take the turn, follow Erin out to sea. Bermuda, you need to watch this because you could get some more wind and some rain from this. It doesn't look like to be a big hurricane or anything like that, but certainly could see some development, but it is fortunately going to miss the United States and most of the islands as well. Another little area out here, not really looking for this to do anything. Stay harmlessly out to sea. And again, this one looks like a more ominous track, but conditions are going to become increasingly unfavorable down here for this. Even though it's got a 40% chance to develop into a depression, it's got a small window to do so, and then it's going to get blasted apart. We're not going to have anything to worry about from that system. Here's a look at the tropical action in terms of the Atlantic basin. There goes Erin right here. You can see that sticking out like a sore thumb. Here's the tropical wave with a chance to develop into Tropical Storm Fernand. The next one behind it looks kind of scary and ominous. If we can zoom in here, we can actually see it. But it's going to, as I said, encounter some increasingly hostile shear, and it will erode after that. Several more waves in the pipeline, all need to be watched, but I've looked at the shear maps. I've looked at the upward, the instability over the Atlantic and the upward motion, and some of those parameters are coming together to create an unfavorable window for tropical development over the next 1, maybe 2 weeks. So talked about that yesterday, kind of went into depth on that. And so you need to pay attention every day, especially in the heart of tropical weather season, and we're going to be watching all of that. I'll be watching all of these waves, but really the guidance has trended away from anything important or impactful as we go on out in time. If we take a look here at the European and roll this along over the next really 2 weeks, you see these waves. There it goes. There's the one that may turn into Fernand. European doesn't do a lot with it. The GFS is a little bit better here, but there it goes. The next waves just come in and bring some rain into the islands, into Puerto Rico, to DR, into Cuba. Here and there you'll see some squally weather occasionally, but none of those waves develop over the entirety of the 2-week period. So that is good news until you start to get to the end of the period. A little bit beyond that, maybe mid-September or so, we're going to see things maybe turn around in the Atlantic and have a much more favorable environment for development. So we'll watch that. That is kind of peak season in there. So the pattern over the next couple of weeks too, as we roll this on out, there goes Erin, the next one kind of comes in, but look what happens as we get way out in time. You see this big ridge out here? We talk about these ridges out in the Atlantic. Big trough coming in. We're going to talk about that in a minute into the eastern U.S. You're certainly not going to see any tropical systems make it in the front door from the Atlantic when you've got a big trough like that in place. That will just knock everything back out to sea. If we could sneak something in the Gulf, that's a different story, but nothing is really showing that. But look what happens as we get way on out in time. Now, this is just one model. This is the European ensemble. But this would be a very concerning pattern. Look at this. You've got this big, broad Atlantic basin ridge that just extends all the way into the States. Anything that travels under this is going to follow it and get in here to the Caribbean or off the southeast coast and potentially threaten the States. So we're going to watch this pattern. If this comes to fruition, it's a long ways out, but if it does, I wanted to show you this because this is what a much more of a landfalling pattern may evolve into. Something like this, you would certainly have to keep your guard up for if you live along the southeast coast or the Gulf Coast of the United States, certainly in the Caribbean as well. So that's what's going on in the tropics. We're going to follow all of this every single day. I'll keep you posted on it. But right now, we got to test your weather IQ, and I've got an easier question for you today coming right up. All right, today's question is an easy one after a couple of days of hard ones. You have to be a tropical expert to kind of know the last two, but this one is, we've talked about this, so you may have picked up on it, you may get the answer to it. And here's the question. Which of the following does not usually cause a hurricane to weaken? A, an eye wall replacement cycle. B, wind shear. C, warm ocean water. Or D, mountain peaks. If you know the answer, type it in the comments. If you don't know it, hang out to the end of the show and I'll let you know exactly what it is. But right now I'm going to let you know exactly what's happening with the weather as we take a look at the weekend forecast and what's coming down the pike, which you may very well like a lot. Friends, I want to thank you so much for all the support. We've grown a lot lately, a lot of new subscribers, a lot of people join the team. If you haven't yet done so, please hit the subscribe button if you like what you're seeing and like the content. Tap the bell, hit those turn those notifications on. I put these videos out every day. You'll get notified when I do. And leave a comment. I'll read all the comments. If you have a question, let me know where you're commenting from. Put any of that in there. Of course, put a prayer request. If there's anything I can pray over for you, let me know what it is. Pray for me. I pray for you all anyway, every day. If there's something specific, let me know. But certainly appreciate all the support and the kind words that you all leave in the comments. Great comments every day. In any event, we're going to get on here with the weekend forecast. I'm going to start by taking a look at the severe weather outlook today. Just a marginal risk. We're seeing a little bit less of severe weather threats as we go along based on the pattern and how it's setting up. But over here in the northern plains and Midwest, we could see, some isolated severe weather later today. A tornado or two is not out of the question here in Minnesota, where we've got the best dynamics associated with a boundary there, wind and hail being the primary threats, but we're not looking at a widespread event certainly today. Taking a look here at the radar, the forecast radar, as we go through the afternoon, you can see where that boundary is. It's right up here, leading edge of that cooler air that's coming in later, hint, hint. But look at this, not too much. The rapid refresh isn't all that excited about robust convection until we get later on in here into the evening. Certainly going to see some convection over the southeast. Seeing plenty of rain here in the mountains. We're going to continue there in the foothills. We're going to continue to see that with this flow coming in out of the Atlantic and out of the Gulf. But plenty of moisture around here, stalled boundary. There's your monsoonal flow back through the Four Corners, and you can see that front. But as we go through the overnight period, get on in toward tomorrow, look at that. Got a little cluster moving from South Dakota into southern Minnesota, approaching Minneapolis and getting on into Wisconsin by the time the morning rolls around. And again, we'll see that front light up again in the afternoon with more showers and thunderstorms back to the Four Corners, up to the Great Lakes, and then over into the southeast tomorrow as well will be the focus for showers and thunderstorms as we go through the next couple of days. Here, friends, is the alerts map. Very, very quiet until you get off the coast and you get the storm and marine warnings. Some air quality alerts for ozone back here in Colorado, but then you get out here into the west, the Intermountain West, and up and down the west coast, we're looking at warm temperatures, except along the immediate coast. Extreme heat warnings for temperatures running back up into the 1-teens through the weekend. Extreme heat watches through the weekend up here near Spokane and the interior portions of the Northwest, and heat advisories through the Intermountain West. It is going to be a hot weekend, while other parts of the area start to cool off, or the country start to cool off. Air quality alerts here around Denver, in and around Phoenix, and also in and around LA as well. Temperatures over the next couple of days, really nice. Not bad at all from the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley to the northeast, where you're in the 70s. Start to get into the 80s down here into the southeast, and 90s and muggy in the southeast and Florida up into the plains as well. Not so muggy up here, but certainly hot in the southern plains, back in the desert southwest too, and 80s, and generally speaking in the interior portions of the Pacific Northwest. Tomorrow we're starting to see that push of autumn air come in right here through the northern plains, warming up a little bit here in the east, 80s and then 90s across the south. Not as bad tomorrow in the plains, but warming up big time in the desert southwest and in the interior northwest through the Great Basin. And that continues on Saturday, and a warm in the southern plains, fairly warm seasonal, I would say, along the East Coast. But look here, 60s coming into the Midwest, and that push will continue with even some highs in the 50s up here near International Falls. Goodness gracious, folks, fall is coming, and this will blast south through the week. Sundays, we've got highs in the mid to upper 80s across the south until you get down here into Texas and Louisiana. We're seeing in Mississippi upper 90s, and then hot in the desert southwest, again approaching 100 in the Pacific Northwest. west. As we go on out in time too, as we get into the weekend, looking here, Friday afternoon, probability of precipitation back in the Four Corners region all the way up in the western lakes, and then of course in the southeast. Everybody else looking good for Friday. Moving this along Saturday, most of the day during the day on Saturday. Again, that's where the frontal boundary is, back stretching from here in the desert southwest, essentially up into the Great Lakes, and again along the southern Appalachians, mid-south Cumberland Plateau, back down into the deep south. That's where we're looking for the highest probabilities of precipitation on Saturday. Raleigh, you may stay dry all the way up into New England, and then the northern plains look to be dry as well on Saturday. And then as we roll this out towards Sunday, same areas, but again a better chance. Talked about this yesterday. A front's approaching, and ahead of that front will be some convergence along that frontal boundary. So interior sections of the northeast and then down into the southeast will continue to see the probability for precipitation on Sunday. So you could head out to church in the rain in the east, and also out here in the desert southwest. This will pick up as the afternoon wears on. And then look what's coming, folks. Look at this. So as we get on out into Saturday, into Sunday, these are temperatures, 2-meter temperatures, and they kind of bounce around a little bit as you go from night to day. But look at this as we get on out into Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. You know what this represents? Green colors, purple colors, below average, and quite significantly below average. We're looking at highs, we get into next week, highs in the 70s, making it all the way into parts of the southeast, and dew points are going to be very low as well for this time of year. This is incredible for the month of August. We're talking about 20-degree departures from average as we get on out to mid and late next week. Look, and it just hangs on Saturday, Sunday, Monday the following week. Now this is the GFS, European, warms it up a little bit, but that's what you got here, folks. That's just incredible. Now look at this as we get on out. This is dew point. It's a dew point map, and look at this. These big, let's roll it back. You start out the period here with dew points in the 60s from the Midwest and down here to the Mississippi Valley into the southeast. Look at those things just get monkey hammered all the way down to the Gulf Coast, with dew points crashing into the 40s and 50s across the upper southeast, even in the interior southeast too. Look at that. Next week, this is on into next Thursday. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, we're going to have fall fever big time as this air mass comes in. It means business, and it's going to keep tropical systems way on out to sea as well, but there's really not going to be any tropical systems trying to get in the front door anyway for the next week or two. Okay, this again is a beautiful map for August, something you don't see every day, every summer. This is for valid August 26th through the 30th, and most of the United States, with the exception of Florida, southern Texas, and the Northwest, is going to be much, much below average, and mixed here at below to above in Alaska, and Hawaii is above. Precipitation, we could see above signal for precipitation out here in the desert southwest and parts of the south central plains and toward the west. You guys need rain out here, and so we could see those rain chances get elevated during that period below in the Great Lakes, above off the southeast coast, above in Alaska, below in Hawaii. And folks, that is that. Now we're going to wrap things up with a look at space weather. We've got a sunspot cluster turning around slowly on the backside of the sun. It's pretty active. We're going to look at that right now. Well, folks, I wanted to show this graphic in the last segment, but I forgot. Anyway, here it is now. Better late than never, but fall is coming. I'm excited about it. This is the peak foliage map in terms of when the leaves reach their peak color up here in the Rocky Mountains at late September, so you're probably already starting to see hints of that change occurring now, all the way down to the southeast where we find late November in the dark brown, and anywhere in between. You can see the color scale over here and what it means, but certainly we're going to be progressing through that time. If you have any river birch trees, you've probably already seen the leaves turn yellow and start to fall off of those. I'm seeing out my window the garments of the trees fade from a dark green to it's kind of a pale green now. We're getting that way, and insufficient data down here in Florida and Texas. But here's your sun, folks. Look at this. Let's go back here. Let's start with this. There's your coronal hole turning toward us. We're going to see the wind stream from that pick up over the course of the next several days, probably 3 or 4 days from now, and maybe put us in minor geomagnetic storm conditions. Not much else going on there, but check out the coronagraph. Boom! Big explosion on the far side of the sun. Sent a halo CME out. That is coming from a sunspot group that is going. That's nothing. Don't worry about that. That would be bad if that faces. But that, you can see that. that is coming from a sunspot group. It's going to be turning in about a week, and we'll have to monitor it because it's a very, very big sunspot cluster, obviously capable of shooting big blasts out. We've got several sunspots turning in toward us, but the biggest one here is 4191. Can't really see it all that well. We'll look at it tomorrow and see its magnetic complexity. You have to have good magnetic complexity if you want to see the highest risk of sunspots, or solar flares rather. So we'll see that, but obviously that one on the backside is quite active, and that will be concerning to have one of those big CMEs headed toward us in that fashion. 3.4% is your moon headed down to a new moon phase. That will be in 2 days. It is August 21st. August 23rd is the next new moon. And that brings us back to the answer to today's weather IQ question. Hope you got it right. This was fairly easy, but if you're not, all that up to speed on tropical stuff, then you may not have, and that's why I'm here to help you out. We're going to learn something every day on this channel, folks. Which of the following does not usually cause a hurricane to weaken? Eyewall replacement cycle, wind shear, warm ocean water, mountain peaks, and the answer is warm ocean water. Actually, that helps tropical cyclones strengthen. They use that as fuel. Everything else on that list usually indicates weakening of a tropical cyclone. Now you know about tropical cyclones, and a couple of other interesting historical tidbits today. In 1911, on August the 21st, in the early morning, Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre by a former employee. I'm not going to even try to pronounce his name, Vincigo Perugia or something like that. Perugia. Okay, I didn't try to pronounce it. The painting was recovered in Italy in 1913. Missing for about 2 years. The heist captured global fame. How about that? People try to shoot at it too and paint it, but it's under bulletproof glass and it is sealed and you can't really harm it. So don't do that, folks. That's stupid. All right, and then also cool thing that happened on August 21st in 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state of the Union. And now you know history, folks, and now you know the weather. And as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you, weather runs 24/7, but we got you covered right here, right now on Cold Rain's Weather World 4814. If anything changes, follow me on X. I'll post there at Real Cold Rain. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you back tomorrow with another update.